we partnered on that deal and several others after that. And it really kind of kicked off the career from there. But yeah, you have to find, there's those two really, really big silos of raising money and finding deals within this business. I had to find out which one I could fill and then bring partnerships on for the other.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the Gentle Art of Crushing It show, where we focus on learning and sharing with our listeners all there is to know about how to create success in our lives. This show stands on the shoulders of giants. Our mission is to empower and inspire our listeners to create the life of their dreams whilst having a blast in the process. Let's celebrate life together. Welcome to the show.
All right. Welcome back to the Gentle Art of Crushing It podcast, Passive Investing Edition. My name's Randy Smith. I'm your host today, and really excited about our guest, Justin Moy, today. Justin is a sales guy. He's an active investor in the apartment space, and he's a passive investor, and he's just an all-around great guy. So, Justin, welcome to the show. I'm glad you're here today.
Hey, Randy, thanks for having me on, man. I'm excited to be here. We share similar paths and hopefully similar trajectories. I love seeing what you're doing over there. So love being connected as much as we can.
Awesome. Well, let's jump right in. Justin, can you maybe start with a little bit of background about your history, your background, what kind of led you to this space?
Yeah, perfect. So, I really was blessed with circumstances. I think a lot of times you look back and you realize that there are key pivotal moments that like totally change the trajectory of your life. And mine was my very first office job. So I was 17 years old. You're in high school. You're just kind of wrapping up high school at that stage. And I got an internship at a commercial real estate office. It was the only office job that took my application. I didn't really have a passion for real estate. I didn't really have a passion for anything at that time. And through my time at that office, I hated my job as most interns do, right? I was getting food, I was making copies, I was stapling pages in the right order. So I hated the job, but I was able to be around these very high performing brokers. And the commercial space is just like you are either the top, or you weed out really quickly. So this office was small but mighty. And it was so cool just hearing them wheel and deal and negotiate and close big deals, and everybody would celebrate. They'd ring the bell, and I was like, oh my God, this is just so cool. The only thing I knew about myself at that time was I was at least foundationally good at sales. I had retail sales jobs, and every month, no matter the month, I was always number one. It's selling whatever it was, shoes, supplements, gym equipment, anything I did, I was always the number one guy. And I thought, okay, so I know I'm at least pretty decent at sales. And I know these brokers, I was kind of helping calculate their commission checks. Like, wow, these brokers are kind of crushing it. So, I told my parents, hey, I don't want to go to college. They said, if you don't want to go to college, what do you want to do? I said, I want to sell real estate. So when I was 18, I got my real estate license in the Bay Area in California, started selling homes. And I started selling homes in the third most competitive market in the country at the time. And really, Randy, between you and I and the listeners, it crushed me. It absolutely crushed me. We were talking before we recorded. It was 6 months before I closed my first deal. And I found out, this isn't retail sales anymore. If I want to survive, I have to build a real skill set. I have to work my ass off harder than anybody else, being an 18-year-old selling 7-figure homes. And thankfully I did. And that just was the kicking start of my real estate career. And now I'm an owner and investor just like you are. But it's been a phenomenal journey ever since.
Are you interested in real estate investing but don't know where to get started or think you don't have the time or money? Are you stuck in your W-2 because the golden handcuffs make it hard to walk away? If this sounds like you, check out impactequity.net and schedule some time to talk with the founder, Randy Smith. Randy went from massive income to leaving his W-2 through passive income, and he can help you do the same. www.impactequity.net.
That is awesome, Justin. Yeah, it's you're kind of speaking my tune. Like literally, I was the shoe sales guy. I was actually a waiter, and I considered myself a salesperson as a waiter as well. But yeah, getting out into the big world with like real professional folks selling, very, very different world, and a little bit harder probably to sell $1 million home than it is $100 pair of shoes, I suspect. So
it was, especially being a kid. Really, I mean, I was a kid. No matter how arrogant I was and how adult I thought I was. These people, one of my clients a little bit in my career, she said, okay, this is so great. We celebrate the closing. Let's go get some wine at the winery. I couldn't even go. I
Oh,
had to make
wow.
something up because I didn't want to say, well, I'm not 21. So yeah, it was challenging, and you got to hit the grit with it. And man, really, only the strong survive in a field where you only eat when you kill.
Yeah, yeah, that's interesting. I had kind of similar stories as well. Like I ended up doing phone sales for a number of years. I sold advertising. I sold computers. I ended up selling trash services for years, which was the first time I'd ever done face-to-face sales. And then I landed at a financial services company, and my job was to be a consultant to business owners. And I remember walking into that first appointment thinking, like, what in the heck am I doing here? Like, I've got no business giving business owners advice on how to run their business. Clearly, they're far more experienced and educated and skilled than I ever am. But oddly enough, those skills that were born early in my career from just getting comfortable talking to people ended up translating into business centered conversations in that face to face environment. So, yeah, I love that we share that. And it can be a hard, lonely path as a sales guy earlier in his career.
Yep.
But the upside is amazing when, you don't need a degree to make strong six-figure income in sales, which is kind of a unique situation, right?
Yeah.
So,
Exactly. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And really, being back in that sales role, man, a really interesting story is I actually didn't close my first sale for 6 months. And for 6 months, no paycheck. And I got to tell you this, I'll open up to you guys. I was in the office by myself one day. It was 7 p.m. I remember that almost exactly. The clock struck 7, and I was a cold caller. I would cold call like a maniac, man. I had the triple line dialer, I had two headsets on. I was highly motivated. And at the 6 month mark, it was 7 p.m. I was alone in the office. I took my headset off. I had that little indent you have on the top of your head when you've had your
yeah.
headset on all day.
Well, no hair.
Yeah, yeah. And I started tearing up, and I put my face in my hands and I said, okay, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm 6 months down the drain. I have nothing to show for it. I was already making up the excuse I was going to tell my friends and family, right? Because when you sell real estate, that's the first thing you do. You go on Facebook, you tell everybody, hey, I'm selling homes. If you know anybody, let me know. And I thought, man, what am I going to tell them? What's my excuse? Market's great. Can't use that. The firm is a huge firm. I can't use that. What am I going to say? And I told myself I was going to leave and just never come back. I said, when I get in the car, I'll figure this out. And I had my computer open and I saw one more opportunity pop up on my dashboard. And I stared at it, stared at it, and stared at it. And I said, forget it. One more and I'm done forever. I'll never have to make another cold call again. I made that dial. And as a guy who just decided he was going to quit his job, you can imagine that I half-assed my script like crazy, right? I mean, I didn't even care. I was almost wanting to just get through it, just hang up on me so I can get out of here. And that was the first person to ever say, yes, why don't you come by tomorrow and show me what you can do? Got that listing, and we sold and bought her next home, closed on the same day, and it was $60,000 net commission to me after fees. So, at that point, I was like, wow, you got to follow the process. No matter what, you have to follow the process.
And you're 18, 17,
I'm
18 at
18
this
years
point?
old. Yeah, I'm 18 years old. I just made what my mom makes in a year in a day, quote unquote, but it really is a long path, but it's significant. And that's when I said, okay, this is the rest of my life. From now on, I don't quit. I don't quit when I want to. I have to push through, and I'm always right there. The universe is funny like that. You're right there. It makes you get right there to the end. It makes you do one more, and then it'll give you your break.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, and I'm sure you're familiar with a guy named Ed Milet who wrote a book called The Power of One More, or Power of
Yeah.
One More, or One More. I'm not sure exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you are a guy in sales or really any difficult situation, whether it's lifting weights or
Yeah.
relationships or whatever it is, that power to, in spite of adversity, to pick up the phone one more time, have one more hard conversation, have one more set. Like, quite often, that's the difference between the average guys or ultimate failure,
Yeah.
or the people that are just absolutely crushing it. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's an inspiring story. And I think it's a good lesson and a good reminder, really in everything that we're doing, to consider, like, what is one more, whatever that is, rep going to do for the business. I had a number of similar stories like that through my sales career. And I used to fly to Vegas every other week for a few days for my job.
Yeah.
And I would meet with business owners from the second I landed until the second I took off. And we had the ability of doing drop-ins and just
Yeah.
like cold call drop-ins. And
Yep.
I can't tell you how many times it was that last one on the end of the day when it's 110 degrees
Yeah.
and the suit is all dirty around the neck. And it's that last one, though, where you catch the guy who's working at 6 p.m. because
Yep.
he's the entrepreneur that you get him and do it. So really, yeah, great memory to go down that
Mm.
path, and congratulations. So I'm guessing a kid at 18 years old, you got 60 grand in your pocket. You probably like reinvested 75% of it back into the business and put
Yeah.
the rest into savings. Or did you
Yeah.
just do what
Pretty
I would have done
close.
at 18? Oh, did you? Good.
Pretty close, actually. Yeah, I was really, really, because they always tell you like, okay, that's the snowball. Like your first one is the hardest, and everybody usually says that. And at this point, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid like crazy. I'm like, everybody said, it would take me to the end and back, and it worked. So yeah, I think I did like 50-50. I put 50% of it back into the business. I started buying some ads. I went on a nice dinner with me and my girlfriend at the time. Um, and man, I just lived a simple life. And part of the reason why I switched from that broker space to the owner space, the investor space, is because selling real estate consumed my life at that point. Now, part of it is that's my personality. Once I get narrowed in and hyper focus on something, I'm all in. But it's also kind of my downfall. After a couple of years, I felt that entrepreneurial creep coming up on me. I felt like, hey, I can't keep putting in these 12, 13, 14-hour days. I felt that, my mental health and my physical health, I wasn't making time for myself or my personal relationships. So, I said something has to change. And that's what sprung me into, okay, well I got to own. These owners get paid every month, every year. They do the work up front, and they do get a paycheck up front, but they also get residuals afterwards. So I got to do that. Went down the rabbit hole of, hey, what does that look like? A lot of people say, most people in their lives say, hey, yeah, my goal would be to buy one single family home a year. And I knew people who had great success doing that. But when I crunched into those numbers, it just didn't excite me. Like, man, you're talking about clearing $100 a month, $200 a month, maybe. Okay, for me to quit my job, I got to have 200 of these homes. And so those numbers didn't excite me. And so just like most people who go into the multifamily space or commercial space, I kind of crossed residential off my list, and dove into multifamily. And that's really what brought me here.
Okay. Awesome. And that's kind of the uncommon path. It seems like folks, especially being a residential real estate guy, it would be, in my opinion, a logical next step to go
Yeah.
into residential real estate. But I guess being in the Bay Area as well, the numbers
Mhm.
probably are a little more difficult to work that way, I
Yeah.
suspect, right?
Yeah, I think that was a big part of it too. If you were anywhere else in the country at the time, maybe it worked out a little bit better. But the Bay Area, you were, like I said, you were cleared. If you cleared $50 a month, you were like celebrating. Now, I wasn't sophisticated enough at the time to understand. Okay, that's going to appreciate to this percent. But when I was looking at cash flow, that's not what I wanted. So yeah, I knew I had to explore other options. And at the time, I was moving states myself, and that's part of the reason why if you're moving and you're a residential real estate agent, that means you're starting over. And so I thought to myself, man, I can't do this. I can't be forced to stay in this one place forever. So a lot of those things made me look other ways for building long term wealth.
Okay. So I'm curious if you can kind of jump into the mindset of where you were when you chose multifamily. And it was multifamily apartment, I believe, correct?
Yeah. Yes. Correct. Apartments.
Okay.
All apartments.
So talk to me a little bit about why you chose multifamily, why you chose apartments, and
Yeah.
what those kind of next steps looked like for you.
Yeah. So when I found out about kind of the crunching the numbers behind the single family investment, I was really, I don't know if shocked was the right word, but I was really taken back because I'm like, man, this was my like goal. I was really, really, like I said, I have shiny object syndrome like most entrepreneurs do. I thought this is my thing. I'm going to jump into both feet, and the numbers were just glaring at me. I said, man, I can't make this work in the time frame that I want it to work in. So I kind of felt lost again. I kind of felt, shoot, what am I going to do? God, I could just throw a bunch of money in the stock market, or I could, I kind of, should I do flips? Well, I'm not very handy. I don't know anything about design. So, flipping homes is kind of like a natural thing for real estate agents to do. That just didn't excite me either. I don't have that skill set. And the algorithm gods, once anything's on your mind, they start serving you the perfect pieces to come your way. And one of the influencers, who's pretty big in the multifamily kind of coaching and mentoring space, just started showing up on my feed. Just really started showing up, and so I just thought, man, that's pretty interesting. Let me read his book. Got the book, and again, just drank the Kool-Aid on it. Just said, okay, this can work for me. this can work for me. Set up some calls with him and his team, and dove into a coaching program. This was, about 4 years ago, 5 years ago at this point. And haven't looked back since. It was a great journey for me. I think the mentoring really helped bridge the gap between what I knew and what I needed to know to hop in here. And that's really what set it off for me.
I love it. And I think if you ask 100 like successful entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
90 of them that found their success went out and found somebody that did what they wanted to do
Yeah.
successfully, and then essentially bought into the program and then mirrored what they were doing. And it's
Yeah.
it's kind of like the franchise model. If something works, success leaves clues. Jump in and just do what they do, and you'll get what they
Yeah.
got. So yeah,
Exactly.
congratulations on that. I think a lot of people in the entrepreneur space, though, as well, they think that they can figure it out and they think that they have to do it all. But
Mhm.
that's very, very different in the multifamily syndication space. So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about, you hear a lot of people talk about focusing on your superpower or partnering with
Yeah.
people that kind of fill the gaps of where your weaknesses are. What did that look like for you?
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, what I do now is different than what I do when I started, which is good for me. I'm kind of following this path that I knew would happen. So there's really two big, big, big keys when you're first starting out in syndication space. One is raising money, and the second is finding and underwriting deals. Now, at that time, I didn't have an investor base. I was still pretty young relative to what I was doing. I still didn't have a lot of that respect. I didn't have that track record. And people, rightfully so, wouldn't invest in me. I was, again, in my young 20s. I'd never done this before. I'm telling people I'm going to buy apartments. I needed partners, and I needed to be able to bring something to the table. So that something was acquisitions. So again, I was a broker. I've been a sales guy my whole life. I could talk to salespeople left, right, sideways in my sleep. So I knew, okay, I could build really good broker relationships, and I can underwrite deals. I I hated underwriting deals. I underwrote over 600 deals within the first 2 years of my acquisition journey. Hated every single one of them. It's just not my skill
Sure,
set.
sure.
I'm a
Yeah.
sales guy. You tell a sales guy, fill out this spreadsheet and do, I just hated it. But I knew it was essential, and I knew like that's the value that I bring. I'm not gonna whine and complain about it. I'll just grit my teeth, get it done until I have a track record and I could do what I really love, which is raising money, just like you. So I underwrote a ton of deals and started actually getting a good amount of off-market traction from some brokers. And again, it's anybody who's in sales listening to this, you understand it's the same system. You put them in your CRM, you follow up, you follow up, you follow up. You're patient, you're patient, you're patient, and then next thing you know, again, right when you're thinking this isn't working, they say, "Hey, yeah, I have something. Why don't you take a look at it before I'm going to market it next week? Why don't you take a look at it?" And that's how our first deal worked. I found partners at a convention, and I was looking at a deal. They fit my complementary skill set and within contracting to help execute on the value add strategy with having access to a lot of investor money. And we partnered on that deal and several others after that. And it really kind of kicked off the career from there. But yeah, you have to find, there's those two really, really big silos of raising money and finding deals within this business. I had to find out which one I could fill and then bring partnerships on for the other.
I love it. I love it. So fast forward a few years, by leveraging your skill and bringing that to the partnership, how many units, how many apartments, like
Yeah.
what's the portfolio look like today?
Yeah. So for me, as being a lead GP on it, on 200 units now, and over 3 deals, and looking to continue to build upon that. And now stepping more into your space too, where I'm raising money for other operators who have phenomenal systems built out. And I think part of what you said, hey, you don't have to reinvent the wheel to be successful. I think that's part of what guys like me and you who raise money are seeing. It's like, yeah, I can sure build out a team and build out systems and build out all this thing to run great deals. But man, these other people have already done it. They've been there, done that. I trust them with my money. I trust my investors with their money, with their operations. Let's plug into that system. So, we do still have properties. I am still the lead GP on these. We are still managing assets, and I am still expanding my personal portfolio. But as it comes in the future, probably be raising more money for other people who just have such phenomenal track records that it's better to plug into those systems.
Okay. Well, and maybe we talk about that a little bit, because that's something that you and I share, and kind of the superpowers that we bring to the table are, one, yes, we're sales folks. We like talking to people. We like bringing
Yeah.
value to individuals, organizations, whatever that is.
Yeah.
But we've both become very good at vetting and finding good operators and good deals.
Yeah.
So what are you looking for today, or what differentiates a good deal from a bad deal today
Yeah.
compared to what we saw in years past?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's, underwriting hundreds and hundreds of deals. It's a good experience to have, and I think that is something kind of unique as well. That like I've been there, done. I know where they're getting these numbers. I know what's good expense ratios. I know how they're pulling these comps. Um, the biggest thing is I want to look at the operators. I want to look at the operators in the markets that they're investing in. Now, I don't think you need to be in a Phoenix or a DFW or a Florida market to make great, 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 phenomenal returns. Matter of fact, some of our best performing properties are here in the Midwest. So to me, I'm looking at that operator. A lot of people, if you ask operators now, they're going to say, "Oh yeah, the last year, the last 2 years, we've doubled our projections and we've killed it in these." I don't care about that. Everybody crushed it the last 2 years. If you projected a six cap and you sold at a three, that wasn't really you. You didn't really make the market a three cap. You were on the good side of timing, which is phenomenal. And I don't want to discount those people at all. But you got to show me more than that. You got to show me, how did you operate in regular times? How did you operate in down times? How are you and your team adjusting now when, okay, we're seeing occupancy rates drop in a lot of these multifamily classes? We're seeing concessions are up. How are you increasing stickiness with your residents? How are you addressing your biggest line items like turnover? What do you do for resident retention? I mean, all of these little questions are going to amount to a phenomenally better transaction for you. And really, Randy, what I'm looking for is a solid answer from you. Even if your system, maybe I don't think it's the best system in the world, but if you say, "Man, Justin, we do this for resident retention. We have these emails that go out. We follow up 3 times with maintenance requests with these people. If they rate us on a 1 to 10, a 7 or below, I go out there and I knock on their door and I ask." That's phenomenal, but you at least have a system. You have a system in place, and it's a system that's going to make the property successful, and you and your team have to run those systems. So those are really the big questions I dig into and ask. The last year, the last 2 years, everybody killed it. I don't care what your projections were the last 2 years and what you actually did, because a lot of that is market helping you out. I want to see what your systems are so that you can do that again on these ones going forward.
Okay. I love that answer. And I love kind of your humility as well. Like, I don't necessarily need to agree with your system, but you need to have a system, because a system can be adjusted. It can be duplicated. It can be scaled. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love that. So I'm curious, as you're doing due diligence on operators, are there red flags that you watch
Hmm.
for, or anything specifically that you're looking for that would automatically take somebody off your potential list?
Man, I don't know if there's a one thing that's one thing that is just my preference, and I'm not knocking anybody that does this or invests this way. But for me personally, one thing is I don't like to see a solo operator. Either one guy running the show, one guy or girl, or a husband and wife team. And again, nothing wrong with that at all. But I watch a lot of Shark Tank, and one of Kevin O'Leary's favorite questions is, "What happens if you walk out that door and you get hit by a bus?" You can't be the one person. Life happens. So I support those people. They have a very tough job doing it all themselves. But for me, I need to see a team. I need to see a team with a business around it. And going back to what you said about systems, I need to see systems. And again, the systems, yes, they matter, but if you don't have systems, to me, you don't have a business. Because to me, it's not people that run a business, it's systems that run a business, then it's people that run those systems. So if you have systems in place, I know you treat it like a real business. And that to me is extraordinarily valuable. It's not a side hustle to you. It's not a hobby to you. You have real systems in place. You have people to really operate those systems. So those are two huge things that I look for. Do they disqualify somebody right away? Not on the snap of a finger, but yeah, you're going to have some pretty phenomenal other boxes to check for me to overlook those.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's a great idea, because you're investing. I heard something the other day that said, don't be a guy that does deal, be a guy that creates a business that can successfully execute business processes, right? Because it's solopreneur to a true business are two very different things. So very good. Let's kind of shift a little bit if we can. So this our avatar, our audience is really the new or newer passive investor, probably somebody with less than 10 or 15 passive investment deals. What kind of advice would you give to those passive investors as they're getting started or continuing to grow or build a portfolio in this space?
Yeah. Man, one of my favorite quotes is, education is not something you did, it's something you do. You got to stay on top of everything. On the operators, on the asset classes, things like multifamily and self-storage right now are crushing it. They're doing really good. Will that always happen? I don't know. Over the next few years, I think they're still looking really strong. I read a study the other day actually that said, Gen Zs and millennials are having way less kids than other generations. So there could be at some point a surplus in housing. So you can't get locked into that one thing. Multifamily it's crushing it right now. Nobody can deny that. But they're going to go through their cycles. What are the other asset classes that excite you? What are the other operators that excite you? Are you keeping up with all of the operators, what they're doing, reading their content? If you're just starting out, one of the best things I could tell you is just follow different operators. Follow them on social media. Get on their mailing list. I'm a big inbox zero guy, but I keep all my mailing lists. I want to read what everybody is doing. I'm on yours. I look at Randy's. What's Randy up to? And so I read every operator's list, and I'm in the business all the time. If you're not in the business, you're a sales guy or girl, you're a consultant or something. It's hard to keep up. So you need to be subscribed to these lists. You need to be subscribed to their social media. You need this information served to you. Stay on top of the asset classes, stay on top of what excites you, and always look in the future. Always look at the data, the macro data, and also ask the operators, hey, Randy, what's your thought on multifamily for the next couple of years? Again, whatever the answer is, it's neither here nor there, but do they have an answer? Or are they staying educated, right? Because those things are important. If you're not staying educated, man, I trust you less in a year from now when you have a deal. Because I'm like, man, you don't even know what's happening in the industry. So those are big.
Yeah, I think that's such an important piece that a lot of people get into this space because they're trying to get time freedom and
Hmm.
dollar freedom and those types of things. And they want to be the guy that's going to do maybe a deal every 2 or 3 years. And that's really all that they need. And I think that's fantastic.
Hmm.
More power to you if you've been able to create a living situation where you only need to do a deal every 3 years.
Yeah.
You're probably not a guy, though, that's staying on top of every single trend in the marketplace. You don't
Yeah.
understand what's going on economically, macro or microeconomically.
Yeah.
And you really just kind of raise your hand when you need to make a little bit more money. So I personally choose to focus with operators that are working harder than working, quite frankly, and are
Yeah.
smarter than I am and are doing a lot more deals than I am because generally they've got a pulse on what's going on in the marketplace better than I ever will, quite frankly.
And if you're at that point and you're asking those questions to an operator or somebody like me or you who raises money, this is the one question that the only people who ask me the question are people who listen to my podcast because I talk about it all the time. But you got to ask this question. There's one question. That question is, out of the people who have not invested with you, besides lack of liquidity, what is the number one reason they chose not to invest, either in you or in this deal? And again, whether the answer is likely neither here nor there, because they're probably not going to say, "Oh, because they found out I lied to them about something," whatever. You're going to get kind of a bow tied answer. What I'm looking for is, do they know? Because if they know, again, they treat this like a real business. They treat it like a real business. They look for feedback. They ask. They follow up. They want to know, why didn't Randy invest so that I can make it better next time? And that's what I want to see.
I love it. Well, let's put you on the spot a little bit then. In the
Yeah.
last 2 weeks of the people that did not invest on your current deal, what are the
Yeah.
reasons that you're hearing?
Yeah. So right now we're really focused, just like you are. We have a short-term rental deal. Um, the biggest reason that I've gotten pushback on that is, hey, I don't know if I believe in that asset class at scale, which again is
Sure.
totally fine. It's just people's taste. Um, or hey, I don't like the accredited versus non-accredited is another big one. That's probably my number one. The
Okay.
second is, hey, short-term rentals. I just at scale not comfortable with it. And again, that's totally fine. You got to be comfortable in these things as well. It
Yep.
is not a new asset class, but at this scale, it's newer than like a multifamily who's been around forever. And some
Yep.
people like to see that. Overall, for us, why people have passed on investing with us is we're not a huge conglomerate, which is totally
Yep.
fine. Some people love like the Cardone Capitals. They feel like if you're too big to fail, then you can't.
Yep.
And I'm pretty upfront with that too. We're an intimate operation. There's 3 partners and 2 employees. So if you want that big, huge team, we're just not that. And again, that's
Hmm.
totally okay. But those are the biggest
Absolutely.
points of feedback that I get.
Yeah. And I love that you have the answer. And I love that you understand that your investments are not the best investment for everybody. And you'll
Yeah.
find, especially in the sales place, you end up or in the sales environment, you'll find people that got a widget and they're convinced that everybody needs the widget before they ask any questions, before they
Yeah.
do any qualifying at all. So
Hmm.
I love your answer on that. Great job.
Yeah.
So
Appreciate that.
we're already at 30 minutes as these times seem to go by much faster with every one of these that I do. But I do have a handful of questions that I like to ask everybody. So
Yeah.
if you don't mind, we'll jump into those right now.
Yeah. Let's fire away.
Awesome. All right. So is there any specific educational resource that you would like to share with our listeners? Again, remembering that our avatar is really the newer passive investor.
Yeah, man. So I have to plug my show, Passive Real Estate Strategies. If you're a podcaster, you like that. All I talk about is passive investing. So the funds, the syndications, the turnkeys, due diligence, all about operators. So of course, I'm biased. I love that resource. Everything is geared towards exactly like you said, that passive investor. And then if you like books, just a self-help book, Limitless has been my favorite book by Jim Quick. It's like a brain training book. But yeah, if you're a passive investor and you obviously love podcasts because you're listening to this, Passive Real Estate Strategies is our show, and I love it.
I love it. We're probably the only two podcasts that anybody needs to listen to. I suspect,
I
right?
think so.
Yeah. That's great. All right, let's do this then. How can our audience support you in what you're doing today?
Yeah, I mean, man, Randy, me and you, we're sales guys. We just love to talk to people at the end of the day. It's why we make podcasts, because our friends and family are sick of hearing us talk about real estate.
Absolutely.
If anybody wants to talk real estate, I love talking real estate. If anybody wants to talk sales, I love talking sales. Man, if anybody needs anything out there, they feel like they're at the end of that rope. Like if my story really resonated, where like your face is in your hands and you just don't know what to do next, just reach out. Randy, and you produce a lot of content. It's so cool when somebody reaches out and said, "Hey, I heard you on this, or this. I just had a question for you." Like we love, right? Correct me if I'm wrong, but we love
Absolutely.
those things. It's like, that's
Absolutely.
so cool, So if this had an impact on you, or you need anything from us, reach out to me, reach out to Randy. If we can't fix your problem for you or help you out, we'll point you to somebody who can. So really just looking to help you out and hopefully make your life better by committing your time to listen to this episode.
I love it. I love it. All right. One kind of fun question I'd like to finish with is, what is a recent bucket list item that you've checked off your list, and what is one you hope to in the near future?
Yeah. So recent bucket list item, I actually moved in with my girlfriend. We moved across the country from sunny Scottsdale into the Midwest. So that's been fantastic. Such a great just transition for me. It's just the two of us out here, and we're really building up, our professional lives and our personal relationship. So that was a huge bucket list item that happened at the end of last year. And then this year we are going to Thailand in November. So that was my bucket list item. COVID canceled my first trip, and now we're making it happen. So in November, that's where I'll be. So don't reach out then. You won't hear back.
Well, congratulations on the new roommate. That's outstanding. And world travel. That is my biggest bucket list at this point as well. So yeah, very cool. Justin, thank you so much for being on the show. I think you brought a tremendous amount of value to the audience. Clearly, you and I have a lot in common. I love the experience and the expertise that you brought. So thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah, Randy, it's been phenomenal being here. Thanks so much for having us.
Awesome. All right. And to the listeners, thank you again for joining us today. And as I always say, continue your education path with passive investing. I'm convinced, I'm sure Justin is convinced, that once you take that first step towards investing in your first passive investing deal, we're convinced that you'll continue to move more and more of your capital back to this until you've completely decreased your dependence on your W-2. So thank you, everyone, for listening. And until next time, thank you.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another episode of The Gentle Art of Crushing It. It was an amazing episode. We know we sure learned a lot, and we hope you did as well. We want to take a second and thank you so much for viewing or listening to this episode. And please just know that we only ask for one favor, and that is to make this life magnificent. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.